I'm going to share with you the two different kinds of toxic people. What's up guys, Matty B here and welcome to No Going Back. Now if you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know I don't like toxic people. If you've seen my videos in the past, I've done ones on the 10 signs of toxic people and how to deal with toxic people. But what do you do if you don't know the kind of toxic person you're dealing with? I have two categories of toxic people that I want to share with you. And for me, this is how I categorize which ones are worth working with and keeping in your life and which ones you should cut from your life. But before we go any further, I want to make sure that you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification so you can be notified every time we release a new video. Now, sooner or later, each and every one of us are going to come across a toxic person at some stage in our lives. It's something that's an unavoidable fact. Now, whilst there are all sorts of subcategories of toxic people, for me, there are really only two categories that you need to worry about. And these are acute toxic people and chronic toxic people. So what is an acute toxic person? An acute toxic person is someone who's picked up toxic habits. They may have some underlying emotional trauma, or they may be someone who themselves has had a relationship with a chronic toxic person and has picked up toxic habits like passive aggression. They may be someone who is emotionally immature and may not have had their emotional needs met when growing up and have carried those toxic habits and toxic coping mechanisms through to adulthood. They may be someone who has been hurt in the past, and because of this past hurt, they've formed barriers and blockades, and they're fearful of letting others in the fear that they might get hurt again. An example of an acute toxic person might be someone who is confronted in an argument, and because they don't have the emotional maturity to deal with it, because they don't have the coping mechanisms relevant for their age and situation, they shut down. So instead of being able to face the confrontation, they withdraw, they enclose, they don't know how to respond. And that can at times be infuriating and frustrating for the other person, but it's a toxic habit. They don't have the emotional maturity and the emotional vocabulary to deal with what they're feeling at the moment. With this kind of toxic person, the acute toxic person, these are the ones that are capable of change. They are capable of growing with the right help and the right therapy. What is a chronic toxic person? The chronic toxic person is, always has been, and likely always will be a toxic person. These are the ones who know better, but because they like the feeling they get from making others feel worse or making themselves feel important, or the sympathy they get from being a toxic negative influence, they decide to keep being that person. They're the ones who at some point in their life decided they were the victim, that the world owed them, that they were wronged and everyone else needed to change and apologize to make it up to them, that they were somehow owed something. And until they get payment on this imaginary slight, things will never be okay. Well, unfortunately for them, things never will be okay, because this thing that they're wanting, that they're craving, this validation for some imagined slight that never happened, they're never going to get. These are the ones that are convinced that they are perfect and the world needs to change. Unfortunately, this kind of person cannot be helped by you or I. These ones, if they're lucky, might be able to be helped by a proper professional. But unfortunately, that would imply that these ones want to get helped, and they just don't. They're happy being how they are, which is quite ironic because they feel constantly miserable unless they're making other people miserable. Unfortunately for the chronic toxic person, the only way they know how to lessen their pain is to inflict it on others, otherwise known as the transference effect. Chronic toxic people are often the ones you hear about from abusive relationships, whether that be mentally, emotionally, or physically. These are the ones that seek to break you down over time. They see something in you that they feel is missing in themselves. So rather than trying to build that little flame up inside themselves, they want to extinguish the one in you. These are the same ones that will punish you for succeeding, being happy, and establishing boundaries. And they have a plethora of tools at their disposal which they do this. Tools such as stonewalling, silent treatment, flying monkeys, negging, unpredictable temper and outbursts, love bombing, and devaluing. These people are possessive and antagonistic. They're the ones who will blame you for not being good at something, but then tear you down when you are good at something. They constantly keep you in a state of not knowing where you stand, because that's how they get their power. They get their power from your uncertainty, from your chaos. They derive their self-satisfaction, their enjoyment, their stability from your instability. A relationship with a chronic toxic person is a very hard thing to get out of. These are the ones that every time you try to approach them with an issue or something that bothers you, they will act hurt, cry, or get angry. And in the worst cases, they will threaten things like suicide when you attempt to leave. These are the people that would much rather take you down with them than work on themselves and get themselves better. Unfortunately, these are the ones who are not capable of change. And unfortunately, that means that for your own benefit, the best thing you can do is cut these people from your life. I myself have had a few relationships with chronic toxic people and acute toxic people. And whilst it hasn't always been easy, cutting ties with the chronic toxic people has been the best thing I could have done. But I want to hear from you guys. Are there any relationships in your lives that you would categorize as acute toxic people and chronic toxic people? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so you can be notified every time we release a new video. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, I'm Matty B, and be kind to one another.